Hi, my name's Ian and I want to welcome you to another 5-minute family devotion here at Gideon Heathgate Anglican Church. At 5-minute family devotions, we're going through God's big story and we're looking at the story of the Bible and how God is working on each and every page of the Bible to bring a relationship with Him once more. We've been filling in the gaps as we've been going through God's big story, and what have we learnt so far? Well, God's people were finally in the land that God promised a long time ago to Abraham. God told Joshua to go in and take the land, and that he did. God won some amazing battles as Joshua went into the land, and then Joshua divided up the land among the different tribes of Israel. It all started out really well, but then, after a while, the people were silly and forgot about God. They turned away from Him and started following other pretend gods. Now that was a big no-no. God got pretty angry about that one, and so He sent neighbouring lands in to punish His people. Finally, the people would hopefully realise what they did wrong, and they would say, "Sorry God, please forgive us." Well, that's what happened. It happened over and over and over, and God sent them a judge to rescue them when they said sorry. Today we're going to learn about one such judge. His name was Gideon, and today's story comes from Judges chapters 6 and 7. Well, I've got this big box of stuff here to help me tell the story. Now, Gideon was a bit of a scaredy cat. When the Midianite army came in and attacked, Gideon went and hid. But God chose him to rescue his people. Now, Gideon didn't think that God was right, and so he said, "Hey God, if it's really going to be me that's going to rescue these people, what I want you to do is I'm going to put this fleece out on the ground, and overnight when I wake up in the morning, if it's wet but everything else around it is dry, then I'll know that I'm gonna be the person to be able to help rescue them." Well, God did that, but that wasn't enough for Gideon. You see, then Gideon said, "Hey, well, what's gonna happen now if the fleece is dry and everything else around it is wet? Then I'll know." And God did exactly that. Well, Gideon knew that God was going to use him to be able to help rescue his people. Well, what happened next? Gideon assembled an army. There were lots and lots and lots of people. It's kind of like a box of matches. There's heaps and heaps and heaps of matches in the box of matches. Now, Gideon knew that that was a big army, but God said, "That's too many. I think if they win this way, they'll think that they did it and not me," thought God. So Gideon said, "Go away if you're afraid." Well, of the 32,000 people that were there, 22,000 left. They went away, leaving only 10,000 people. But that was still way too big an army for God. Okay, so God told Gideon to tell his people to go down to the water and have a drink of water. All the men who knelt down to have a drink of water, well, they were told to go home. And now, not only 10,000 people left, but only 300 people were left. Now that's not very many at all. How was God going to win this victory with only 300 people against this massive Midianite army? Well, God had a plan. He told Gideon. He said, "Gideon, spread the 300 people out around the Midianites." He gave them all a jar to be able to have. He gave them all a torch that he put in the jar, and he also gave them a trumpet. Oh, what was going to happen? Gideon said, "Do exactly as I do." Now all the people held the trumpets in their right hand, and they held the torches in the jars in their left hand. And when Gideon gave the signal, they broke the jars and they blew their trumpets. And they yelled out, "For the Lord and for Gideon!" Well, I wonder what happened next. Well, as soon as the Midianites heard all the trumpets, were a bit confused. All the Midianites, they drew their swords. It's the closest thing I could get to a sword. They drew their swords and they started fighting themselves. And those who weren't killed, they started to run away as Gideon and his men chased them away. Well, God won an amazing battle for his people, and he did that with only a couple of people. Only 300 men, a trumpet, a jar, and a torch. You see, it was pretty important to know Gideon didn't win this battle. God won the battle. Gideon trusted God, and he had faith that God would win the battle. And after that, after they won the battle, God's people had a time of peace and calm again. Well, why did God take all of Gideon's soldiers away? He took them away so that Gideon and all of God's people would know it was God alone who was the one who would save. He didn't want the people to think that they saved themselves. He wanted them to know that God saved them. Boys and girls, it's the same for us. We can't save ourselves from sin. Only God can save us from sin. And God showed that he could save us by winning a mighty battle with only one man, Jesus. You see, when Jesus died for us, he saved us from our sin. He took the punishment we deserve and he won a mighty victory. So if you're going to boast, don't boast about how good you are because we're all sinful. Why not boast that Jesus is the one who has won the victory for us? Well, in a couple of seconds, a couple of questions are going to come up on the board. And as a family, I want to invite you to read, to think, and to pray. And pause the video as you do each one together as a family. Remember, also keep on sending your photos in and we'll say g'day to you in the coming weeks.